This episode is brought to you by Muntins Malts, a company that is passionate about providing premium malts to brewers worldwide. For over a century, Muntins has been a leading supplier of brewing and distilling malts, offering the finest British malted barley on the market. You can experience the difference Muntins offers by joining a recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club, because every kit that ships out now includes premium Muntins malt. You know, we've known the Muntins crew for a long time, and I can tell you, friend, you're going to love brewing with their grains. Ask your local supply shop to carry Muntins malts, or homebrewers can join our Trub Club at homebrewhappyhour.com/club, be a part of the community, and come brew with us. Thank you, Muntins, for supporting our efforts and homebrewers worldwide. Today's show is brought to you by hopsdirect.com. Grown in the esteemed Yakima Valley on the Pewterball family farm, hopsdirect.com offers the widest variety of hops available online at incredibly competitive pricing. It's simple. They grow hops, they sell hops, and they ship hops straight from their family-owned farm to your doorstep. Producing the highest quality hops is hopsdirect.com's passion, and they're proud to be an independent grower in the craft beer industry. Go to hopsdirect.com right now and get what you need to make your brew day better. That's hopsdirect.com. Today's show is brought to you by Imperial Yeast. You hear us gushing over Imperial Yeast all the time, and that's because their yeast performs for us in every batch that we brew. Imperial Yeast is adored by commercial breweries and home brewers alike. Their Pitch-Right pouches are jam-packed with over 200 billion fresh yeast cells, guaranteed to deliver flawless, fast fermentations every time. Imperial Yeast strains are grown by a team of pro brewers and home brewers who live to help other brewers learn more and ferment better. Join any recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club and get a free upgrade to premium Imperial Yeast with every recipe kit that ships out to you. Learn more at homebrewhappyhour.com/club and come brew with us.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Everything you need to know about Monster Brewing Hardware. An interview with Fred Francis. This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 432. Well, hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. And if you, my friend, have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, you could go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page. You could text me, 325-305-6107, but actually I shouldn't have said that hotline, because what I want you to do is call it to 325-305-6107. Leave us a voicemail. Question, preferably. If you have feedback, if it's good, I'll play it, but preferably a question. When we use it on a future episode, get yourself a gift card to kegconnection.com. I am your host, Joshua Stubing, and today I'm so happy I'm joined by my friend Fred Francis, the owner of Monster Brewing Hardware. Fred, my friend, thank you so much for doing the show.
Hey, how's it going?
Dude, I appreciate your time. I know we were chit-chatting before. People may realize, if they're brand new to the industry, they don't, that you run this company. It's been around for a while, but you also have a job. A lot of people in here, like, people think I do the podcast for a living. I don't do this at all. I wish I did. Not enough people are members of our Patreon, but like, I have real work to do. And when people are like, "Oh, you just dance around like a monkey in this," no, I wish this is what I did. But I really do appreciate your time, brother. I know we've been chit-chatting for a while, getting stuff together, working together and all that. So I really do appreciate you coming on the show.
Glad I could be here for sure.
And before we get going, we've been having more guests on the show this year because, speaking of like business and the state of the industry and all that, we've had to focus, like Todd and James, my normal co-host, are only doing it halftime now. So I've been filling this Instead of only doing the show twice a month, I'm like, I'll do these episodes without you guys. And part of that, I won't presume that you watch this, is there's a small talk segment where I just go through some housekeeping. So bear with me. The good thing is, though, people have noticed when I have a guest on the show, I go through it like this. One of the 1-star reviews, or the common theme of when we get 1-star reviews, is, oh my God, Josh talks forever about stuff that just doesn't matter. So, so with that all out there, Fred, bear with me. Give me, it'll be less than 90 seconds. Start that clock, friends. Here we go. All right. Trub Club recipe this month, my friends. Go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. You're going to get the delicious Dusseldorf Alt beer. It's going to ship to you at the end of the month. Premium ingredients from our sponsors, Muntons, Hopstrat.com, and of course, Imperial Yeast. Like I said, guys, these premium ingredients make these kits everything. And if you want this shipped to you, join the Trub Club, patreon.com/homebrew happy hour, which reminds me, Brew Day Live. Oh, the screen is still empty. Great. Well, just know when this publishes, Brew Day Live's tomorrow, Friday, May 23rd. Spoiler, Fred, this episode is publishing on Thursday, May 22nd. So tomorrow, May 23rd, because this is real right now, and we're recording on May 22nd. Wink, wink. Join us tomorrow, friends, at youtube.com/homebrew happy hour. My pop and I will be brewing the Dusseldorf Alt beer. I am so excited. I turned 40 in November, and my goal is to have Kolsch on tap and alt beer on tap. And I've brewed the last batch of Kolsch is just chef's kiss. And I'm just going to let it sit in that fridge all the way till November, ideally. And then same with this alt beer. Brew a good alt beer, let it sit in cold condition for many, many months. And then when I crack it open or tap it, because I don't bottle, I just cannot wait. So anyways, Brew Day Live is tomorrow, May 23rd. But if you're listening to this when we publish it, at youtube.com/homebrew happy hour. And then next week, the end, it is Kolsch Cup. I'm just letting y'all know, y'all can also watch that at youtube.com/homebrew happy hour. We're recording it on Friday the 30th. Probably not going to be able to record it or live stream it because the internet at Todd's place is terrible. So we will likely just publish it on Saturday the 31st. But just want to let y'all know the entries have been arriving. We're very excited to do Kolsch Cup for y'all. Stop the timer, friends at home. That was it. I think that was probably like 3 minutes if I had to guess, but
120 seconds.
Oh, no kidding. Like 2 minutes on
I was timing you.
Oh. I saw you do it, and I was like, "Crap! I gotta hurry!" Ah! Yeah, I did say 90 seconds, so I owe you some time at the end of the show.
No, just messing with you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that a lot. Yeah, one of us has to be accountable to the other because you told me you could talk forever, and I was like, "Oh, this is not going to be good for us," because I could talk forever, and we're just gonna But anyway, let me get us on track. I had you on the show. I'd reached out to you. I may have actually originally reached out to you last year, but I'm so bad at following up. We finally got on a phone call about a month ago, maybe a few weeks ago. And one of the things I was telling you is how so many people reach out to us. We've been doing this show for 10 years, and I've never done a show that very deep dive into milling or mills or any of that, because I've always used a commercial mill. And when people reach out to us for a mill recommendation, your name is, if people could go on the forums, and Monster Mill obviously pops up top when people are asking. The commercial ones don't, because homebrew is overkill and they're so expensive and all this stuff. So I'd reached out to you like, hey, let's maybe try this like partnership thing, because I would love to have you on the show and talk about it, because your products, well, first off, they're American made. You're doing it. Yeah, they're right here. You're literally the one. You're the only one doing it right now. You were telling me it is you. Monster Brewing Hardware is you. But also it's in a price range for a home brewer to be able to get something that is going to be supported for the long haul, going to last the long haul, and not break the bank. That's where I always, I'm not throwing Blickman under the bus. That's the commercial grain mill that Todd has had when we used to have the homebrew supply shop. I can't recommend a $1,500 grain mill to an average home brewer in good conscience. You know what I mean? Like that's not a slight at them. That's just like, it's so overkill, and who needs that 30-pound hopper? And yeah, I'm now digressing myself of where I started this conversation, but I'm glad to have you on, and I'm glad that we're able to finally sit down and tell people, because a lot of people want to mill their own grains, and they don't want to do the little cheesy Cuisinart, like electric, they do it like, like a half a pound at a time, or not even a half a pound, probably a cup at a time. And then, okay, next cup. But Monster.
Yeah, that would take a while.
Oh, so, it would take a while. And we are all.
Yeah.
But so let's start from the beginning, Fred. You have, you homebrewed. You were an avid homebrewer. Let's talk about that first. What came for you first? Was it like a love of craft beer that got you into homebrewing, or was it homebrewing that got you into craft beer? How did you start your homebrewing journey, and when was it?
I just liked beer. I don't even think homebrewing was a thing, or I didn't even know homebrewing was a thing when I found out about it. I was in school at the University of Florida, go Gators, and I went to one of our faculty members' house for a party for the ASME Society, and he broke out a bunch of homebrew. And we started tasting it, and I was like, wow, this is pretty doggone good. He's like, yep, I made it myself. So I was like, really? You can make beer yourself? And he's like, sure. So instead of going to his office hours to talk about, schoolwork or the class I was in that he was teaching, I went to his office hours and learned about how to make beer.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, he gave me the 30-minute, new joy of homebrewing speech, I guess, and kind of gave me the basic process. And I ended up going to the local homebrew store in Gainesville at the time, which was the Hogtown Brewer, and bought some ingredients. I basically bought an extract kit and brewed it, and it was awful. And did that several more times, and it was awful every time. I was really kind of picky. He said he always used a bunch of sugar, so I had a lot of twang going on, and it was just horrible. Dry yeast, extract, not even a full boil. It was just a disaster. So, but I kind of did it on and off, and then school, and then after I graduated and got my first job, I was at the vet with my wife with our cat, and she points outside to a sign on the road that said, homebrew shop. And it was in the same shopping center that we were in. So after we got done with the cat, I went into the homebrew shop and talked to the owner at the homebrew shop and started talking to him. And then I got back into brewing, after I graduated way back in 1992. So,
way back when. Yeah.
yeah, a long time ago. So I ended up joining the Covert Hop Society in Atlanta, and met a bunch of those guys, went to a bunch of their meetings, drank a bunch of really good beer, and ended up hooking up with a crowd in that group, and started learning more about brewing. And once I started getting yeast from the local breweries, my beer just all of a sudden was 10 times better. So that's one thing people never tell you about, is you're really a yeast farmer. The yeast is the most important thing. You can kill yourself with the best grist bill and the best wort, but if you don't use enough of the right kind of super healthy yeast, you're never going to have good beer. So
I'm more impressed. Your local breweries would share their yeast with you? That's incredible.
Oh yeah. I'd go to Max Loggers or go to Atlanta Brewing, and I would just bring a sample bottle, and they would just dump it right out of the bottom of the fermenters and give it to us. So, when you pitch 2 cups or 3 cups of active slurry, it just, your beer goes off like a bomb.
Yeah, no kidding.
Great.
I bet it was a rocket, right? Just...
Oh yeah, it was fantastic. But yeah, once I figured that out, I started making pretty decent beer, and then stuck with it for a long time.
Was it when you joined the homebrew club or that community? Was that when you switched to all grain, or were you still doing extract at that time?
Oh, yeah, I switched to all grain shortly after joining the club. It was one of those things where you didn't really know what it was until you saw someone do it. And then you say, well, shoot, I could do that. That's not too hard. And, I went to a brew day and they did an all grain batch, and I was like, geez, this is not too difficult. So I put together myself a 10-gallon got cooler and a converted Sankey keg and, as a boil kettle, and another one for a hot liquor tank, and, got some Camp Chief burners and stuff. And I built myself a wooden stand. So I had, the right levels to gravity feed and all that, just like everybody does. And, I brewed like that for a long time.
You built a Sabco Brew Magic before Sabco was a thing. I don't know if you remember those. I bet they're still in business, but the kegels, I knew a bunch of people who had those.
It's funny. I ended up right before I stopped brewing. I ended up building myself a Brutus 2.0 with two pumps, PID temperature controllers, solenoid operated propane valves, and it was all stainless. It was badass, with big old Blickman pots and everything. And I only brewed on it a few times before I ended up not brewing anymore. So
yeah, you had told me that, and we did talk about it. This show. It's not too Debbie Downer, but you got diagnosed. Well, I'm already forgetting. Was it type 2 diabetes?
Yeah, type 2 diabetes. Yeah, so I had to cut my carb intake. Still need to cut my carb intake, but
I like that.
I basically stopped making beer. I didn't stop drinking beer completely, but I stopped making beer, and I kind of switched to whiskey. I got into the whiskey, the bourbon and scotch thing quite a bit, and ended up accumulating a few bottles here and there, and got into that.
Do you smoke cigars too, by chance?
For me, kind of. Oh yeah, those too. I love those.
That's nothing better than bourbon and a cigar.
Oh yeah, definitely. So, but I've been running, Monster all along. So I never, I didn't forget everything I ever knew about brewing. I just, don't really brew myself anymore. That's all.
Yeah. And before we start into the like how Monster came to be and how you got into that side of the industry, I want to ask you though, do you remember your first batch that was awful? Do you remember what it was? I love asking people this question.
It was probably an ESB. It was one of those Muntins in a can kits. Maybe a pale ale or something. I didn't put in hops. I didn't put in specialty grains. It was syrup and water and yeast.
I remember those, the pre-hopped. Yeah. When the early days of the Keg Connection supply shop, he first had Cooper's, because I think that's who his vendor or his distributor could get them. And I remember trying one, and I think I messed up the temperature or something. We brewed it there at where the headquarters is. It was terrible. And
the funny thing is every single drop of it got drank. Okay. When you're in college, and you're around a bunch of kids that just want to get drunk, they drink every last bit of it. We had people
that's
over.
So funny.
Oh, free beer. I'm down with that.
Even if you have to hold your nose.
So. Oh, yeah, this beer is pretty good. Thanks, Fred.
They didn't even do that. They just drank it. They're like, yeah, all right.
That's hilarious. And ESB had to be Muntins, yeah, because I remember when we switched to carrying Muntin stuff, and obviously many years later, then when Muntins becomes a sponsor, I'm like, oh yeah, that first can I did of yours was great. It was, and it wasn't there. To be fair to them, it wasn't probably their fault. It was the distributor let that can sit on a shelf for however long before they sent it to us.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't brew very light beers, light bodied beer, or lighter colored beers with extract. It's almost impossible. So. I wasn't trying to make Bud Light or anything like that, but I certainly was fine with darker beers. But it just, the taste wasn't there. I think it was probably a combination of many things, So I know I've tasted extract beer that's fabulous. So it can be done if you know what the hell you're doing.
I was gonna say
I didn't know what I was doing. So
we talk about that on the show all the time. People made fantastic beer and extract. Like I said, I really do think for me one of the factors was where you could get the kits, whether it was from literally Todd in our store or local supply shops in Austin. They let those cans sit on the shelf for a long time. I really think if people if you could get even a pre-hopped LME can in the hands of someone and it's fresh, it's going to turn out fine. It'll turn out just fine. But if, the best buy date was 4 months ago, it's probably fine. Might taste a little cardboardy. We might see where
maybe not. Yeah.
Might not be too
I always
good.
thought that most people were using dried malt extract, the powder.
Right.
Getting
Yeah.
better results with that.
Probably. Yeah. You're right. But I mean, those cans
seems like it has a better shelf life.
I think you're absolutely. And I keep DME in my freezer, pardon me, for a rainy day in case I need to bump up the ABV on something or whatever. But the good old days. I always like asking though people, because what I've noticed, a lot of people's first batch was brown ale. Like for whatever reason, I don't know if that it depends on what year or string of years you got into brewing, but like Mr. Beer, I guess one of their popular ones must have been a brown ale. Cause I know a lot of people in the industry who did start on like a Mr. Beer cause their nephew or their kid got it for them for Father's Day, or they got it for their dad for Father's Day, or, cause that was that was the present, right? Back then in the mid 90s to mid 2000s.
Those came out way after I started.
Oh, I'm not trying to date you, Fred. I'm not trying to say you're old, man. Yeah, you're like, well, you're like Todd. You're like, when I started brewing, fire had been invented.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, okay. Let's then now talk. I'm assuming you getting into the milling side of stuff happened after you got an all grain. I'm again just making wild assumptions, and you were probably already a pretty avid brewer, because that's kind of a jump. Like, I want to be in the industry, and I'm going to be in this very niche specific part of it. How did you find yourself in the grain mill side, the consumer milling side of this super niche hobby of home brewing?
So it was probably 1998, 99, maybe 99, I guess it was. And I was looking at getting a mill. And of course, I was looking at the Schmidling, as that was the only thing that was out there at the time. But it was kind of expensive. I was a young engineer working a government job, not making any money. So I didn't want to spend a lot. And just out of the blue, I go to one of the homebrew club meetings, and one of the guys in the club brings a grain mill with him. And he's like showing it off to the group, and I'm checking it out, and I'm like, wow, this looks just like the Schmidling. Looks like it's built pretty well. How much you asking for it? And it was a fraction of what Schmidling was asking. And I was like, well, I'll buy it, and I bought it from him and took it home and played around with it. And at the same time, the guy across the hall from me at work was like, hey, man, you need to let me host your website. And I'm like, what website? I don't have a website, And I also knew somebody, because I was in IT at the time, I knew somebody who did HTML. This is, at the dawn of the internet, back when homebrew, the only thing on internet about homebrew was the digest. I don't know if y'all remember that, but it was a list server. Basically, you would send an email to it, and once it got so many emails, it would forward all of them out to the group. But anyways, so he brought the mill to the meeting, and another friend was like, hey, let me host your website. And so I thought, well, wait a minute, this is like the .com. Everybody keeps talking about .com. Why don't we sell grain mills on the internet? Seems like a good idea. I can help my fellow club member out and make a few bucks, and, it'll be fun. What the hell? And so we basically just had a handshake deal. He was building the mills one at a time in his greenhouse machine shop behind his house. And he would build the mills and I would sell them. So he'd build them and assemble them, and I'd go over to his house and pick them up and pack them up and ship them out. And I did all the marketing and sales and shipping and customer service. I was the whole front end of the business, and he was the production back end of the business. But that company was Krankenstein. I don't know if any of you guys remember them, but I think they're still in business.
Yes.
Yeah. So
That's
Yeah,
wild. I didn't know that.
Years.
I never knew that was history of Frankenstein.
That's well, I mean, he was, Don Obenauer was sending out flyers and trying to sell them to local homebrew shops, and he wasn't having a lot of luck. Just the market in just Atlanta wasn't big enough. So I ended up, I paid for ads in Brew Your Own, and we did. I don't even think we did Google ads at the time. We didn't. I didn't even know what that was. But we got mentioned on the Homebrew Digest, and pretty soon we had a few orders coming in. And after that, I think Homebrew Talk later on got started up, or some of the other forums. And a couple people had our mills, and they just started talking about them, and so yeah, I mean, it was a slow process. We didn't. I wasn't a marketing guru. I was an IT guy and an engineer, and I didn't really know what I was doing. We just started selling mills, and it just kind of snowballed over a period of like 5 or 6 years. And in the end, basically, we were selling more mills than Don could really make anymore in his shop. He just he felt like he was selling so many mills, he didn't really need me to sell them anymore. He could sell them himself. So he basically handed me my ass and said, "Here you go. I don't need you anymore. You're done." And I said, "Well, do you want your customer list and your website and all that stuff?" And he's like, "No, I'm not paying for my own thing." So he had trademarked Krankenstein, which is a good trade name. And once he got the trademark through, he knew I couldn't trademark it, even though I would never have done that. I mean, I didn't make it up. I wasn't going to steal something that somebody else made up. But anyways, there was a big breakup thread on Homebrew Talk. I don't know if it's probably still out there unless it's been archived or whatever, but basically we went our separate ways. It was mutual. So it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm glad he did it. Looking back now, it kind of forced me to get off my butt because I knew, there was issues and stuff, Yeah. I'd call him and say, "Hey, we need this many mills of this kind and this many mills of this kind." And he was just, he was disgruntled. I was a buzzkill. He didn't, he had more business than he wanted, which I can understand. Hell, he was making the daggone things one at a time.
I was going to say, that sounds miserable. That sounds miserable.
Well, it's a lot of work. He has manual machines, he has a manual mill and he has manual lathes, the old brake lathes from the 40s. I don't know if you've ever seen one, but basically you have to do everything on them. It does have an electric feed, but all the adjustments and everything is manual, and it's one at a time, So, which you can make a great product. I will never say that he made a bad product because he did make a good product. And he was making them here in the United States. But so basically once we did that, it was lucky. The guy who ran my homebrew shop in Fayetteville was also a machinist, and he knew people who were machinists. And he told me about a machine shop that could make mills for me. And so I took an updated design, if you will, to them. And I said, "Well, this is what I want. It needs to be like this." And, I had CAD drawings and the dimensions and everything. And with the money that I had left over from running Krankenstein, I basically made my first order of Monster mills and put up a new Monster Brewing Hardware website. That was in 2007. And then the rest is history.
Yeah. I got to ask James, one of the co-hosts, I forget when he actually started brewing, but I mentioned I'm having you on the show, and I forgot he was one of your early customers for Monster. I don't remember if he found you on home. He'll have to correct me. James, you watched the YouTube, put it in the comments, but he has one of your original motor ones, I believe, up in the production area upstairs of our headquarters.
Yeah.
But like I said, like you were name dropping like Homebrew Talk in the early forums. That's where I had found out about you. And quick digression and side note, Homebrew Talk also changed Keg Connection for the better. It was a Black Friday post we did on 2009. We had a proper warehouse by then that we were like, oh, we've got these racetrack kegs, which were ball lock kegs with an oblong lid instead of like that kind of standard. It was more racetrack, like I can't. If you're watching at YouTube,
Oh yeah,
guys,
yeah, I know, like an oval lid rather
more
than
oval than the oblong or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were like, oh yeah, we got these racetrack kegs, and I think we were selling them for $15 because this was 2009. and
oh yeah.
And I mean, it was I think 4 of us working for Todd, so 5 total people, and we wake up to Saturday, or pardon me, this was Black Friday. We announced it. So yeah, we woke up to like Saturday to way more orders than we've ever had in our entire lives. And we're like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Working the whole weekend after Thanksgiving. It was just, I romanticized the early days of the internet because I just have such fond memories. But like now people go to Reddit. I don't know if you use Reddit. I do, much to my chagrin, because they sometimes are okay with me and sometimes Reddit's not okay with me. And so I have a love-hate relationship with Reddit. I think I say that every episode now. But anyway.
I think my only experience with Reddit is every once in a while when I search for something, some threads come up in Reddit and I look at it, but I've never been a thread reader on
active
Reddit.
User.
I think there was another beer board, brew board. I think there was another one. It wasn't just Homebrew Talk. There was a couple different forums.
There were.
Forums,
Homebrew, and it wasn't. They didn't. Homebrew Digest made a website proper to where it wasn't a newsletter anymore. By the time I had found out about Homebrew Digest, and I think he stopped publishing not that long ago, like 3 years ago, 2 years ago. I don't know.
Those forums are great sources of information if you're willing to wade through all the, the extra stuff. The Tap Talk forums. They're you can put it's a really good way to organize a lot of information. It makes it easy to find stuff. And yeah, those boards were really our word of mouth has been our main mode of advertising all along. It has. I mean, I still am. I started doing AdWords on Google and stuff, and I tell you, if you guys knew how expensive those things were, you'd never click on one again. If you like the business, scroll down a little bit further and click on the free link and save them some money.
I'm glad you mentioned that. You're right, because people don't realize, like, if you're not going to just go to the domain directly, like monsterbrewinghardware.com, and you're just scroll down to where it's not sponsored, because Google ads are like, when I try to explain to people, because like, homebrewing shops, there's not, brick and mortars are closing right by the month.
Right.
And online, it's these online ones. We love the More Beer guys. They're actually really good people. It's a family owned business. I love the More Beer guys, but there's only a handful of online companies people are ordering from. And so when they would look up like Keg Connection or whatever, and then click on the link, I'd be like, oh, that cost us like $3. Why'd you,
it literally does. I think I remember when Google became the thing, and I just, for the life of me, even being in IT, I couldn't figure out, why is Google, the search engine, so valuable? I mean, it was just, at the time, gosh, there was Yahoo, there was, Google.
Do you remember Ask Jeeves? Do you remember that one? That was my favorite.
I mean, there was a bunch of different search engines, and I couldn't figure out why it was so valuable until I started doing business with them. And it's like Google prints money because every single search is for sale. And it's a great service. They make it great to make your customers find you, because having a website doesn't get you traffic. You got to get it out there. So,
dude,
they're great for that.
And
but
it's expensive.
It's expensive.
It's so expensive. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so, we could do the small business griping therapy session happy hour. That's what we're doing.
Yes. Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure.
So sorry, I'm getting us back on topic, I swear.
Okay. Yeah.
Monster Mill, what year was this that you, stamp on the paper, we are now our own thing and we are taking off? What year was that?
That was August of 2007 is when Monster Brewing Hardware was incorporated, and I started on my own.
Dude, almost
So,
18 years. That's
yep.
why today I told people early, obviously I record this stuff early and publish whenever I want. But the day we're recording this is it's the evening of May 12th. And this is my 17th anniversary working for Todd in the homebrewing industry. And isn't it wild how different it is from, I say different. It was a budding niche kind of thing for engineer dorts and just normal dorts, like back then that I remember.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's been this roller coaster. I feel like it is more Debbie Downer now than it usually is, but the internet kind of exacerbates that, right? Where we can feel more emotion in a stronger thing because we're more connected with people. But it's just wild how different it is 17 plus years ago.
Oh, it's been lots of changes. It's, I think I have a lot of theories of why so many people stopped brewing, but I think everybody just turned pro. And, everybody turned pro, and now there's all this great beer that's out there, and it's like, why do you want to spend all the time and effort to homebrew when you can go down to the local store and pick from 50 different IPAs? So I don't know. I'm not sure why it seems like the hobby is, kind of taking a downturn, but I don't know exactly I think homebrewing in general is turned down, but I know grain mills have turned down because we're just not selling it. We're selling a fraction of what we used to do back in the day. So,
well, and here's a great segue. When people reach out to me or if they try to give me recommendations, what it is. I'm preaching to the choir. We didn't talk about this beforehand, but they say, "Oh yeah, just go on Amazon." And that first result, and then, but the funny thing is, it could be that Vevor or however I don't know how you pronounce it, Vever,
yeah,
Vever, whatever. Literally, this has happened to me more than once, at least twice, maybe 3 times, where over the since COVID or whenever they've started making cheap Chinese stuff and putting it on Amazon for grain mills specifically. Someone will be like, "Oh yeah, I just got this one and it works great." Not even 3 months later, they're like following up with me about like, "Hey, I hope you didn't buy that one because actually I'm getting metal shavings in my grains now, or something jammed or this or that." What?
Right.
So one of your biggest selling points, in my opinion, maybe even now more than ever with the threat of tariffs and all that, would be the whole it is made in America. You're doing this stuff here, and you're the literal one doing it, so you're supporting the product. So like, as opposed to some phone tree from a 800 number or whatever, people call, they're literally talking to you and for support. Is that what you think just kept you in business going on 18 years of selling grain mills, which is, again, people don't realize it is the most super niche of things to be doing. It's so super niche.
It is. I don't know. I mean, we're, basically, I don't turn the screws on the lathe or the mill. I have a machine shop that builds the parts to my specifications. I have an outfit in North Dakota that cuts the hopper parts, on a laser cutter and a CNC bender. And I got a cabinet maker who's buddies with my machinist who has a CNC router that he cuts the bases on. So everything is made in the United States, always has been. I don't plan on ever changing that. I flirted with it for a little while just because, if you can't beat them, join them. But no, all of it's made here. So when you buy a Monster Mill, you're supporting, my machinist who's putting, beer on his table and dinner on his table. And, my, the guys in North Dakota are cutting the hoppers, they're that's their livelihood. So you're keeping your money here, which is a great thing. So we will never be affected by tariffs, at least as long as we're able to buy material that's made here. So that's one of the things that kind of sets us apart, I think, from the other companies. We use We use better materials. Most other mills, the Chinese mills, are going to use 1018 for the rollers, and we use 1144, which is a better steel. We use actual what is it? I can't remember the name of the company that makes the bushings, Bunting bushings. We use 841 bronze bushings, just like they use in starter motors and drills and stuff like that. Those are all made in the United States. Our frames are 6061. Most everybody uses that, but so we use better steel, better materials. We make it all here. That's why you have to pay a little bit more for our product. We've always been kind of at the top of the price point for mills. You were talking about prices earlier. We wish we could get lower, but every time I've looked at doing a less expensive mill, I felt like you had to compromise so many different things that it really wouldn't. It'd be like, yeah, someone's not going to go for that. They're just going to go buy the Chinese import. Um, Plus, the good thing is you can get parts for your mill. As long as I'm alive and running the company, you'll always be able to buy parts for your mill. I have, none of the designs have changed so much that we can't, get you something that will work or actually build it for your mill if we have to. But yeah, you can get frames, you can get bushings, you can get drive rollers, you can get knobs. You wouldn't believe the number of knobs that I sell for people who they've fallen out behind the table and no one can find it. So, if something does go wrong, you can get parts. So you can't get that with a Chinese mill. You just have to buy a whole new one. So.
Yeah, that's what the bad reviews I've ever gotten or seen, pardon me, on, and I say that one brand that I forget how to pronounce already, Vivor. They're Chinese, it's not Vivor, but either way,
Yeah.
They're a dime a dozen in regards to what's available on Amazon, right? Like you could see a ton of various knockoffs. They're probably from the same warehouse in Shenzhen or wherever, but
Yeah, I think there's only maybe 2 or 3 different manufacturers that's actually making the mills. Barley Crusher was actually made in the United States as well, but I think he's hung it up.
I was gonna say I'm pretty sure they've been closed for a while.
Yeah, they've been closed for a while. All the Blickman stuff is made in China. He does a great job engineering it and getting the specs, but all of his stuff is made there. So, I mean, I had the company that came out with the geared 3-roller that's out there. You may have seen it. They came to me. They wanted me to sell that mill, and they wanted to put Monster on it. And I know I really thought I was so tempted. I really wanted to do it because I really felt like a geared 3-roller was going to be the shizzle. But once I got their product, I was like, oh, Jesus, this has got lots of problems. The rollers are so out of balance. If you let go of them, they'll just spin on their own from the weight of the run out that's in the weight of the rollers. And the gears are about, 1/8 of an inch thick. They're really, really thick, thin, and they're just, they have hardly any register on the end of the roller to keep them from spinning on the end of the roller. I'm surprised people haven't just sheared them off yet, but I don't know. I just saw a lot of different problems with that product, and I thought, shoot, I can do this better. So we came out with a 3G before they introduced that mill. I kind of, got it in before they did.
And that's hilarious. That's fantastic.
I had been ripped off by then. I figure I'll rip them off. There's a company that makes an exact copy of our hopper. When I saw that, I was so livid because I sketched that out on a napkin at Homebrew at the Homebrew conference one year to a guy who was a sheet metal expert, and we just sat. It's like, hey, how can we make it fit into a 12 by 12 by 6 box? What can we do to make that work? And we just started, fiddling around with it, and I drew it out, and I said, this is what I want. And he finished the design and drew it all out, and that's how we got our hoppers going. But there is a Chinese company that made an exact freaking copy of that product. I saw them at the not the Homebrew Fest, but the professional
Craft Brewers Conference. Yeah.
Craft Brewers Conference. Yeah. I saw him at Craft Brewers Conference. I mean, I was this close from jumping over the table and strangling that little guy. I was so mad. But it's like, where'd you get the design for
where'd
that?
you get this design?
You know,
tell me.
He was clueless. He didn't know. The thing that made me mad is somebody in the United States sent it to him.
Oh,
Say,
of
hey,
course.
make a copy of this.
Do you not remember? You've worked enough trade shows that Craft Brewers Conference, maybe it was Baltimore, or pardon me, DC. This was like 2017. There were representatives from foreign countries. We already threw China under the bus. Chinese company people going to every booth, taking vigorous notes and photographs of everything you'd allow them to. So they'd be holding up this remote. Trying to open it.
Yeah.
I wonder, they're just really interested. That's funny. And then 5 months later, your exact product is on the market.
Oh, well, you say that. I was doing the same thing. I was looking at the commercial mills because at the time I was thinking about to try and upsize, because Monster was going downhill. And I went to Craft Brewers Conference in Memphis, and that's where that happened. I went or not Memphis,
Nashville.
It was Nashville.
Yeah.
Nashville. Yeah. I went to Nashville and I was looking at the big mills and I was like, man, I can make something like this, but it never really happened. But yeah, I saw the copy of my hopper and I was pretty mad. But I don't know. The Chinese, the thing is once any manufacturer sends their stuff there to make it, I mean, the mills that they sell, I mean, gosh, the margins are so fat. They're fabulous. And the costs are so cheap. I mean, they can sell you that stuff landed for cheaper than I can make the, half the parts for my mill. It's so much less expensive. And some of it's not bad. I mean,
right. Absolutely.
People are using them. They get the job done. Yeah. So it's but once the first guy made one there, it's like, okay, well, I can't compete on price. I never have tried. I won't. Because that's just a race to the bottom. So we do everything we can to be the Cadillac.
Absolutely.
We're going to have the better sales and support. I've never had to tell somebody no for something they asked, except for the one guy who wanted a refund but wasn't willing to send his mill back. But no,
I like the attempt.
Yeah, big balls, but
no kidding.
Yeah, I try always. I always want my customers to be happy with their mill, and most reasonable requests I have always honored the best I can. So, sometimes shit happens, but we do our best to make people happy with their mill. That's what you pay a little bit more, you get more. I think most people are so used to. It's so funny. People will buy our mill and they'll have some problems or questions about it, and they won't contact me. They'll get on the forums and start asking everybody else, And I'm like, well, it's great. It's less phone calls I have to take. But at the same time, it's like, the guy who made it can tell you too.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Right from the horse's mouth, man. Just call.
Right.
Yeah. You're literally the one answering. I can tell you from experience.
Honestly, people are mostly going to get me an email because I do have a full-time day job. So I try not to I can't answer the phone during the day when I'm at work, because the man will be mad.
I work for the man too.
Yeah. If I'm in there talking about monster mills, they're going to walk by my office and go, you're working for us here. What are you doing?
Your reputation does precede you, and I know that for a long time. Again, the Homebrew Talk forum, even Reddit, when people are talking about mills, people who listen to this show, a good chunk of people, the tens of people, Fred, that we entertain every week, the tens of them, there's a good chunk of them who are fairly new. They call themselves newbie. A lot of people hit me up about, I want to mill my own because I want to bulk buy. That's mostly their actual reasoning, right? I'm going to buy 55 pounds because it would save them money right now. And as shops are closing down, bulk buy. Okay. So that makes sense. That's a good premise. What would you suggest for that person? Let's say the average batch is 5 gallons. So it's going to be a pretty small grain bill, let's say the average grain bill for them is 11 pounds, or let's say 12. Let's just go up. Let's say the average one's like 12. Do you have a setup like a turnkey or basically turnkey that you would recommend, and why? Because I know you go to websites, yours included. There's 2-tier, there's 2-roller, there's 3-roller, there's this metal, there's this. What is like the safe bet? Hey man, here's a setup for you, brand new guy, you're going to be happy with, and you're going to enjoy it for the long haul.
That's an easy question to answer, but most people don't want to hear it. Honestly, our regular old everyday MM2 kit with the 1/2-inch drive shaft is all the 5-gallon all grain guy needs. I mean, even most people now are brewing a bag, or they're batch sparging, or they're trying to save time or whatever. So they're not trying to extract every last little bit out of the grain. So unless you're running a commercial outfit and you're trying to get, every last ounce of extract out of your grain, a 2-roller MM2 is going to be all you'll ever need. It really is. It's $199 with free shipping. Comes with a feeler gauge to set your gap, and oil to oil the bushings if you need to, and it comes with everything you need, all in a nice box. That's all you really need, honestly. Now, if you want to spend more money, we'll sell you more expensive.
I was waiting for it.
Yeah, of course, but it's really, I think everybody gets engineeritis, and oh man, I'm going to get 3 rollers. Oh, that'll be so much good. I'll get such a great crush and da 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 and all that. The honest to God truth is your beer is not going to know the difference between whether it was crushed with a 2-roller or 3-roller. As long as you hit your same target gravity, and after you brew a couple times, you'll know what your extract percentage is going to be, so you'll be able to hit your OGs and all that. As long as you hit your OGs, your beer is going to be the same. It's just, it may cost you an extra 50 cents to $1 for an extra half pound of grain or whatever, or extra pound of grain. And, it'll work great. Your beer will not taste any different with the perfect crush. It just won't. It really just won't. Now once you get into brewing bigger batches and more often, and trying to perfect your craft, maybe a 3-roller is called for. If you're fly sparging and you want to brew bigger beers and not have a giant grist bill, yeah, okay. Well, then, maybe it's time to step it up a little bit then. But, you do not have to spend a boatload of money on an MM3G or a 3 Pro G or whatever, I worry about that. I think our website has just it may have, most people may look at it and go, oh my God, this is just too much to pick from, and they get frustrated. But I'm telling you, MM2, that's what honestly, when I was brewing, I would either use a 2 or 2 Pro almost every time, just because the 2-rollers don't get stuck. They don't skip. They always feed. They crush just great. So it's like, most guys I know are trying to save time anyway, and they're batch sparging, so they just fill it up, they drain it, and then fill it up again, stir it up again, reset the grain bed, and drain it again. So, hell, if you're doing that, you don't care about extract. Why worry about it? So, anyways, MM2, hopefully I'll sell a bunch of them now that everybody's in on the secret.
Or you're going to get some other engineer types to be like, here's why you're wrong. Or in the comments, I'll forward it to you.
Oh, well, no, I'm not. I'll be straight up with you. I mean, I used to think that there really wasn't that big an extract, but there's clubs out there who've done back-to-back tests on the 2 versus the 3. You will get more extract from a 3-roller. You just will. I mean, it will be a little bit more, but it won't be a whole lot more. There is a difference. You will get more extract. I mean, the perfect crush is always a balance between, a stuck sparge and the max extraction you can get. I mean,
yes, that's brilliant. Yeah. I love that. That's between a stuck sparge and that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Right. I mean, what do when they test grain, they make it into a powder, and that's how they figure out what the maximum extract is, right? But obviously you couldn't lauter that. So, it has to be a compromise. Well, you're going to get a better lautering speed with a 3-roller with more extracts. So, it just depends on what your priorities are, spending a lot of money, getting maximum goodie out of your grain, or just making some good beer, So everybody has their own idea of what they want to get out of the hobby. That's why we offer so many choices. So, by all means, knock yourself out, get crazy with it. But, as far as what you need, MM2 would do great. So
that was a very Charlie answer. Basically, yeah, relax, don't worry, have a homebrew, right? Like don't overthink it, man. Don't overthink it.
I have to tell you, when I very first started homebrewing, my roommate got a hold of the New Joy book and just started reading it. And every time I turned around when we were talking about beer, he'd be like, "Relax, don't worry, have a homebrew, dude." And he said that so many times. Relax, don't worry, have a homebrew.
One of my favorite movies.
It was hilarious.
One of my favorite movies as a kid. It held up for me too. The Wedding Singer, and there's a scene where he's wearing it because of Freddie says, or Frankie says, "Relax." I was born in the 80s. I don't remember them, but the shirt is. I've always wanted to get it for Todd because it says "relax, don't do it" or whatever. Like
right, yeah, it should say Charlie, relax.
That's right.
Charlie says relax.
Charlie says relax.
Yeah, but you've met him before, haven't you?
I have.
Trip, man.
Yeah, he is.
That he's hilarious.
Yeah, he'd actually. I've probably met him 3 times. He's one of the many people who every time I meet them again, they forget that they've met me. And then I just have to play it cool so I don't look like a dork. I'm like, "Oh, it's so nice to meet you too for the first time, Mr. Papazian. This is great."
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure he doesn't know who I am, but he's I know I've seen him at the homebrew conferences and stuff. And
yeah.
I think I remember a long time ago, they had the World Beer Cup in Atlanta, and he judged at that. And I was a steward with our club, and I saw him judging for World Beer Cup. So that was pretty cool.
Believe it or not, we ran into him. So for CM Becker, I haven't been in a while. It hasn't worked out. I keep drawing the short straw. But there's a trade show in Nuremberg called the Brew. And it's like the biggest, one of the biggest beverage industry shows in Europe. And we were working a booth for CM Becker Schankenlagen out of Dusseldorf, and we're there. And Todd, walking by the booth, is Charlie Papazian by himself. No one knows who he is. No one cares who he is at this European trade show. So So Todd, we're fanboying, but I was like, "Oh no, you go. I don't want to look lame." And so Todd went over and hung out with the guy for a while, and it's like, couldn't have been nicer, super nice guy.
Oh yeah, he's really cool. We went to a bunch of different homebrew cons. I think the first one I went to was Minneapolis, St. Paul. We didn't have a booth that year. We just went. And I went to San Diego probably at least 3 times. I went to Grand Rapids, Philly, Seattle. Yeah, man, we had a blast.
What year did you stop brewing?
Golly,
because I was going to guess which one, which last homebrew con.
The last homebrew con I went to, I know, was San Diego.
But which year? Because they've been there like a dozen times.
Oh man, I don't remember. I think I killed those brain cells a long time ago. So
they're gone. Yeah. Well,
No,
San Diego was actually also the last proper one, that they ended up having. I mean, they had one last year, but with Great American Beer Festival.
Right, they've combined them now just because there's so little participation. Yeah.
But the one before that, 2023, was in San Diego. We gave a talk. Here's how desperate the AHA has gotten. They let us do a presentation as Homebrew Happy Hour. I was like, "Oh God, this is a sinking ship. What are we doing?" Sound the alarm.
Wow.
No.
Yeah, we had the years I went, we had a blast. I mean, it was always good. And I don't think most people realize the level of commitment that it takes as a club to do Homebrew Con. It was, it's huge. To do club night and to do all the support activities they do, it's just, man, you got to have numbers and you got to have lots of volunteers, and to really do it right, it takes a lot of doing. Not every homebrew club is up to that. And there's fewer and fewer people in the hobby, so there's fewer and fewer clubs that could even do it. even if they wanted to.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
So,
Oh yeah.
I mean, you can't take a 30-guy homebrew club and put on homebrew con. You got to have a 300
right.
300 group club that's like everybody is super active and brewing like mad, and and then a bunch of people in the vicinity too to come in, for club night and stuff. It's just huge.
Yeah, it is like you say. It's a commitment of time. It's a commitment of zeal. It's a commitment of everything.
Oh yeah.
Bro,
Yeah.
I need to get us back on the mills because otherwise I will digress down a whole lot. I'll get it snowballing on some other topic and then we'll, but I want to ask, because I did have a couple more for you before I let you go, because again, I know your time is valuable. A lot of people, when they ask us about grain mills, even if they get one of the cheap Chinese one, whatever, one of the things they always ask is about best practices for mill gap settings and dialing in. And I know you just said, like, you didn't say the crush doesn't matter as much as like don't obsess over this thing, don't chase the dragon that is the perfect crush. But what are some best practices for mill gap settings that you can give as kind of a rule of thumb for the person who might have just gotten your kit and they're trying to set everything up to use for the first time?
Okay, for our mill, and probably most of the mills out there with knurled rollers, I would start at a gap of maybe 40 thousandths of an inch. Okay. That means you take the feeler gauge that comes with our kit, or you go by the auto parts store and buy a feeler gauge. It looks like a pocket knife with little shims of metal in it that are different thicknesses. And you put two shims together that add up to 40 thousandths. 40 thousandths is 0.040 inches. So it's going to say 0.021 and maybe 0.019 or about 1 millimeter, whichever way you want to go. But start at 40 thousandths or 1 millimeter. You basically put the feeler gauge in the gap, turn the knobs on the roller on the adjustment until the feeler gauge is tight in the gap, and you can roll it in and out and the rollers spin, but it's fairly snug, and then tighten up your adjustment knobs. And I always tell people to start at 40 and then go from there. So if you have problems slaughtering and you milled at 40, then loosen it up a little bit. If you think you could, it ran really free and you have a really open false bottom, then tighten it up a little bit. Most people say crush till you're scared. That's what a buddy of mine used to say. And that's a pretty good rule of thumb. I mean, crush till you're scared. And if it runs a little slow, say, well, maybe I need to back off on that a little bit next time. I know I had the Blickman pots with the Blickman false bottoms, and those are not very open. They do not flow very well. So I had to loosen up my gap a lot more than I was used to. Actually, I ended up I changed the false bottoms to the ones with the holes, the drilled holes. But no, I mean, it all depends so much on your system. 40 may be too tight for you, depending on what kind of system you have. So if you're brewing a bag, crush the shit out of it. I don't think it matters.
It doesn't,
with that.
right? No, right.
I've never done brewing a bag, so that's what I hear. So, but basically, yeah, 40 is a good place to start and then work it down from there. And that's true with our mill and most of the other geared or the other types of knurled roller mills that are out there,
and
Chinese ones and
in regard to maintenance, specifically for your kits, for your mills that you offer, what is some general tips that you can give people for maintaining it and keep making sure they can get the most out of their mill for the longest amount of time possible?
Probably the most important thing you can do is if you get any grain dust on the bushings, to get it off, wipe it off, because the bushings have their particles of their metal that's been like centered and crushed together, so it has pores, okay, and there's oil that's vacuumed into those pores. If there's grain dust on the bushings, then it'll suck it out, just like fried chicken in a paper bag. It'll suck the oil out of the bushings and dry them out. So, the best thing you can do is just, if you can, blow it off, or dust it off with a paintbrush every time you use it. And other than that, the absolute best thing you can do is bring it in the house. Put it someplace that's air conditioned, because if it's in someplace that's air conditioned, it's not going to get hot and cold and get condensation on it. And if it gets condensation on it, if it gets hot and cold, it's going to get water on it and it's going to rust. So if you put it someplace climate controlled, that won't happen. If you have to keep it in your garage that's attached to your house, it'll probably be fine as long as you're brewing regularly. But that's the only time we've seen people have rust problems is if they let it sit up for a long time or it's outdoors or something like that. If it's in a shed out in your backyard, you damn well better probably be thinking about buying stainless rollers. So
right,
they're going to rust. Yeah, it's going to rust like crazy.
They're going to call you, hey, why'd this rust? I just left it in my backyard shed.
Right. It's steel. It's gonna rust. So, but yeah, blow it off every once in a while. You don't even have to do it every time. I don't think I ever did anything with mine. I just kind of shook it and went on with it. So, but I did keep it indoors. So
yeah, well,
it's not tough.
I think you answered. I had only had two more for you. One of them that someone had asked before for us is what's the biggest mistake you see homebrewers make when using a grain mill? Well, one of them might be improper storage. That's not actually using it, but I mean in regards to being an owner of a grain mill. But do you have any other things you can think of commonly asked or commonly seen mistakes a homebrewer commits when using a grain mill?
I wouldn't say they're mistakes. It's on our three rollers, you kind of have to be they have to be set up just right because you're basically relying on the grain to drive the non-driven rollers. So if you tighten the daggone frames down onto the base like a Gorilla tight, they won't spin. The rollers won't spin. So you just got to snug them up. And even that, even a little loose is probably better than super tight because that way there's enough slack in the whole system for everything to spin freely. I mean, if you can't roll your hand across the top of the rollers and it spin 10 or 15 times, then you're probably going to have problems feeding. But that's the biggest thing I get calls on is the three rollers, the non-geared mills skipping, because people tighten them too tight or, the frames get misaligned. I mean, it's basically the frames are floating on the base and it's all kind of loose and unprecision. So we put slack in the bushings on purpose so that if we didn't, you would never be able to line it up straight enough for it to actually turn. So, but just don't tighten the hell out of the frames, and that'll probably be the biggest thing that people do that they don't need to do. And that and running the geared mills backwards. Don't ever run your geared mill. Don't run our geared mill backwards because the gears are threaded onto the rollers. If you run it backwards, it will unthread the gears and it'll screw it up every time.
Bad news bears.
So,
oof.
Yeah. So you can turn it backwards a turn or something if you get stuck or whatever, but don't run the motor or the drill backwards. It'll back the gears off the end of the rollers and it'll blow out the tail cover and, cause all sorts of havoc. So don't turn our geared mills backwards. Turn them clockwise.
And if you do, don't call him. All right. He told you already. Don't do it. So don't
call me and I'll send you whatever parts you need to fix it. But, it's, don't turn it backwards. So,
and this last part, Fred, and I assume I mean, obviously, so one thing I always say, it is the best time ever to be alive as a home brewer, just with the information at our fingertips, this or that, innovation here and there. Where I'm going with this, I can't currently fathom how much more innovating we can do to grain mills. But what do you see for, are there any product updates coming down the line? Or what is, for Monster, what does the future look like ideally beyond just, I'd like to sell more? Is there always work to be done improving designs on current models? Or all brand new technology is the future of consumer grain mills? Do you get what I'm asking?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. That's one of the things that, I think has really helped us because we did come up with new things, came up with the three rollers and the gears and, that stuff. But I don't know that I see any new state of the art things happening with homebrew on the homebrew level. I mean, right now I'm trying to figure out how to get, try to get gear motors here without paying 145% tariff. That's the biggest thing. I need to try and find somebody who can drop ship gearboxes or something, some kind of way of gear driving a mill without me having to put a bunch of money out to buy a bunch of gear motors from China. That's the biggest thing. We'd really like to offer a motorized kit, but we sold our last motor, and I just don't have the cash flow to get a bunch more motors in here. So we're trying to find some kind of way where we can do them onesies, twosies, and you guys can get something together that'll work. The little bitty $150 more beer gear motor, it'll maybe work on the MM3, but it ain't gonna turn a 3 Pro. So we're just trying to come up with some kind of mechanized way of driving other than drills. Drills work great. I always tell people that's what the mill's designed for. Use a drill, but everybody wants to motorize. They want to have their big motorized projects. So that's what we're working on right now, I guess.
Well, and idea, and when that happens, you let me know, and we'll tell everybody. Because I think that is, and that's for the sake of, I guess, ease of use, convenience, right? I mean, all of the above. Like it's kind of user friendly.
I think a lot of guys they want to have a cart set up where they just throw the grain in and turn it on and walk away. I never understood it. It seems like a lot of effort for something. Now, some of our mills, I mean, hell, our mills are using 10-barrel breweries. Our 3 Pro will run a 10-barrel brewery. It's a homebrew mill, but it will run a commercial level brewery. I mean, we've had people put 250,000 pounds of grist through our heat treated rollers. It's way more than it looks like, for $4.99, but yeah, those guys, they do want to motorize because they're doing, whole sacks of grain, multiples. So I guess the motorization is really kind of geared at those guys, and it's geared towards the super geeked out bucks up homebrewer guys that want to do that too. So, that's really the guys that want to do that stuff.
Absolutely. And that is, like I said, I'm glad you brought that up. So I didn't sound too infomercially, but like I knew your stuff was used at a pro level as well. And, every time we've talked, you're just very humble and modest. And I want to just be like, no, man, tell them it's pros are using your stuff. They can like this stuff.
No, I can't tell you how many times I've been into small breweries and they may not be using it right now, but they've got a monster mill stashed away somewhere that they used to use, or they're, before they got their big commercial mill. A lot of small breweries. Hell, I know I sold one to, oh golly, I can't. Oh geez, I'm embarrassed now. He runs.
What city?
The guy who runs Rogue. What's his name? John.
Oh no! Now you're putting me on the spot. I should know that.
No, John Meyer. I can't remember. I know I've sold mills to pro brewers. I know I sold one to Sierra Nevada. There's a lot of different, a lot of small breweries and even some big breweries have bought our mills for tester systems or for specialty grains or whatever. So yeah, I'd go to HomebrewCon and we'd go to different breweries, as part of the tour package, to when we go to HomebrewCon. And I went to so many little breweries, and lo and behold, I was always surprised to see that they had a monster mill. So it made me pretty proud of, the company and what we've been able to achieve. So it was great.
Yeah, man, it's been a good 18 years, and hopefully, cheers to another 18
We're hoping
more.
to keep going. Yeah. At least for the foreseeable. I got at least 10 more years, hopefully. So
you're talking about the company or not yourself, right? You're talking about
the company, yeah. At least, I don't know. Does anybody want to buy Monster?
I thought you meant
a revenue stream.
No, brother, I'm so morbid. I like my wife, my family history. I'll be 40 in November. I'm already past middle age. And I tell my wife, like, I'll be happy with 20 to 25 more Christmases. And she's like, don't say it like that. And I'm like, well, I would be. 20 more Christmases would be great. That's 20 more rotations. I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to run Monster when I'm, retired from my day job. I'm, I'm 56, so I got at least 11 more years to collect full Social Security. So if it still exists,
probably
won't. But
yeah, that's what. Yeah.
Yeah, at some point I might not be doing monster mills for forever, but hey,
yeah.
in the interim, we're going to do everything we can to keep it going with somebody. My
That's
kids
right.
don't want to run it, so hopefully someone will at that point will be ready to take the reins and make monster happen.
That's right.
So we got a bunch of good suppliers and designs ready for them to just take the keys. So
And it took me this whole time to say this, but friends, go to monsterbrewinghardware.com to see all the stuff that we've been talking about. I'll put the links in the show notes. I think you have an order note saying, tell him we sent you so that he knows. Like the one sale he does from our audience in this next, I'm not going to say a time amount because I don't want to embarrass myself. This next year, this next fiscal year, the one order that comes from us, you'll be like, that night I recorded with Josh was worth my time.
Okay. I know it will be. It was fun anyway. Even if we don't sell a single mill, it was worth it.
Man, you and I say you and I talked on the phone for way longer than I'm sure you wanted to, but I always enjoy talking with you. It really is fun. We'll have to either get you on for Q&A, like so I can get specific questions for. We'll have you on again for sure. And
I'd be more than happy to do that. That would be great. So
I really appreciate it. And I've got stuff. I did receive a kit from you. We're about to start doing content with that. I'm excited because I can finally, like I said, enough people in our Trub Club, and I'm purposefully mispronouncing it, not because of my speech impediment, but because it bothers purists. I know it's the Trub Club, but we call it Trub because it bothers some people. But
right, the Trub Club. That makes sense.
The members of our club have been recommending you guys for a while. Your company for a while. And so I'm just so happy to finally, because like I said before, I feel bad when people ask my experience with the mill and it's a commercial one that I just can't recommend in good conscience to the person brewing 5-gallon batches once every 9 weeks or whatever the average home brewer does, like I just can't do it. Like you're going to drop and some of those new grain mills are $2,000 for if you're getting the whole setup, the whole static, with the table and all the stuff. It's like I can't. It's not saying that the product's not good. It's just like if someone had said, "Hey, what kind of thing do you ferment in?" I ferment in a plastic, all rounder. I think it retails for like $160. Where, yeah, I could say, that $4,000 conical stainless steel is what you really need, pal. But again, it's just like, there's a happy medium of how do I make really good beer? Well, if I start with fresh and great ingredients, and if I get, for me, I'm really looking forward to being able to crush right before we brew, because sometimes I crush and it's not 3 or 4 weeks till I brew. It hasn't been bad beer, but I suspect it'll be better crushing the morning that we're going to brew. And
I'll tell you, I always recommend, and this is just from experience, I always recommend crushing the night before, maybe not that morning, because if you crush that morning, you've got water heating, you've got yeast bubbling, you've got everything, you got too much pressure on you. If you crush the night before, that way you can get it all done, seal it up in a trash bag, and it's done, and you can mash in, and you don't have to worry about, if the mill skips or you have a feeding problem. I hate it when that happens to people because it makes them mad, So I always tell people, just crush the night before. It'll be just as fresh. Just, put a twist tie on the garbage bag that you milled into so that it doesn't get stale, and it'll be good. But that way you won't have any pressure on you to run the mill, and it will be just as good. So
absolutely. Y'all heard it there. Fred, my friend, again, We'll get you on the show again, but I do appreciate your time tonight. I look forward to having you on again.
Thank you very much. It was great.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, like I said, you could go to homebrewhappyhour.com and use the submit a question link at the top of the page. But even better, call it in to 325-305-6107. Get yourself a gift card to checkconnection.com. Thank you to our show sponsors like Muntins Malt, premium grains for a better brew day. If you aren't already brewing with Muntins, you can give them a try by joining the Trub Club at a recipe receiving level. For the best hops available online, give our friends at hopsdirect.com a visit and pick up what you need for your next brew day. Also, get a pack of premium liquid imperial yeast along with delicious recipes from us, again, when you join that Trub Club. So go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour and come brew with us. On behalf of the absent Todd Burns, absent James Carlson, and the present Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thanks for listening.